can't recognize anything. If you know this area maybe 20 years ago, you will know what had happened here. Because most of the people who lived here, they escaped from the south and the Bekaa Valley. And so they came here. It was like a neighborhood for the poor in Beirut. It had become an independent city, if you want. Hezbollah has helped in creating this city, in building the roads, making it clean, where you have electricity, where you have water, where you have schools, where you have hospitals also. People marry here, they live here. They have children, they have grandchildren. They have lovers. They have friends. They have schools to go and they go to university. It will never be the same again.
Hezbollah was always more than just an armed militia and a political party. It has evolved into the de facto government in large parts of Lebanon, where the Lebanese state has failed to provide basic services. Hezbollah does everything from build and maintain water and electricity supplies to run schools, hospitals, and colleges. Hezbollah receives support from Shiite-ruled Iran. Its opponents in Lebanon have been backed by Sunni Arab governments and foreign donors, including the United States, who want to bolster the Lebanese state. Hezbollah's military may not have been defeated, but most of its civilian infrastructure was destroyed. The rush to rebuild Lebanon has become the newest battleground. A victory or defeat will shape the politics of the entire region.
Now call the Honorable Carlos Pascual, Vice President, Director of Foreign Policy Studies, Brookings Institution.
The balance sheet of this war, in part, is going to depend on psychological and political factors. There is a debate that's going on whether Hezbollah has become stronger or whether working in the south will actually strengthen Hezbollah. I think the answer to Hezbollah's future very much rests with the reconstruction process. In the end, people engage in an international environment because they're trying to advance their self-interests.
Hezbollah knows how to manage its interests. In 1982, the year of its foundation, Hezbollah launched a construction wing, Jihad al-Bina, which began by repairing war damage and building basic infrastructure in the eastern Bekaa, the south, and in the Dahieh, Beirut's crowded southern suburb. These areas have become Hezbollah's strongholds. Qasem Aliq is the head of Jihad al-Bina and is leading the largest reconstruction project in the organization's history.
The major goals for Jihad Bina Foundation is to reinforce the society of resistance. Our society resists the Israelis. The Israelis want them to withdraw from the lands and to leave these lands. It is very important to make these people back to their homes, to their towns, to have their own life.
As with any guerrilla army, Hezbollah's military survival is impossible without the support of the civilian population. To maintain its political and military power, Hezbollah must rebuild and repopulate its devastated strongholds in the south and in Dahieh. The world is watching with interest as this next phase of struggle develops.
1 million people were displaced. Nobody has developed a firm and definitive estimate yet, but a reasonable estimate, I would say, is on the order of $5 to $5.5 billion as a starting point, and that figure will likely grow. This is an absolutely huge challenge. I think Hezbollah are going to struggle.
Some opponents of Hezbollah, including many within the anti-Syrian March 14 coalition that currently controls the government, would rather not see Hezbollah's strongholds rebuilt as they were. More than $900 million in international pledges remains untapped by the Lebanese government. With a legacy of corruption and reports of aid being siphoned off and resold by government officials, the Lebanese government says it needs to put in place an effective auditing system before it can begin to spend the money. The head of the Government Reconstruction Agency resigned in September, saying the government was intentionally dragging its feet on reconstruction in order to weaken Hezbollah's support. Jihad al-Bina is moving with a speed that puts the Lebanese government's relief efforts to shame. On the morning of August 16, the second day of the ceasefire, they sent a fleet of construction vehicles to begin clearing the rubble from Dahi. Within a few days, they had begun to complete damage assessments and distribute aid, around $10,000 for each destroyed home, delivered in crisp US $100 bills.
We open our lines to get the donation in form of money or in form of materials. A lot of states, they are in the job now: Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, and Iran. So right now we are in a good position.
The money may help residents in Dahi find temporary housing in Beirut near their old homes, but in the devastated towns along the southern border, money alone is not enough. In the village of Ait al-Shab, which was bombed 30 times and partially leveled by bulldozers, every house was damaged, and it is difficult to imagine residents returning anytime soon.
This is the whole neighborhood. It doesn't exist anymore. It used to be an old neighborhood, small streets, old shops. Now it's all flat. It got destructed by the Israelis' bulldozers. The guy in blue who's standing down there, he is actually standing on his house. This used to be his house. There was two big bulldozers. There's one down here that the fighters bombed it. The whole town would be on the floor right now. The whole town would be gone if the resistance wasn't here. People thought that Israel wanna depopulate the whole south, and then that's what happened. People left to other villages around Ait al-Shab because of the war, and then because they had kids. The people are worried about education because they want their kids to be in school this year. Second, because winter is coming, and winter is really strong in here. It's tough, and it's cold, and the houses that they are still okay to live in are not qualified for winter season. The unexploded bombs or mines all over the tobacco fields. This is what they live off. I was talking to some families yesterday, and they were telling me this year we're not going to work until they clear the bombs from the fields. This is how they make their money. Jihad al-Bina been here last week, and they stayed here for about 10 days, and then they gave money to everybody in the town. But I can tell you the government didn't show any effort right now in the town, so the people don't consider the government at all.
With the Lebanese state unwilling or unable to take the lead on reconstructing Hezbollah's strongholds, international donors have rushed into the country with their own agendas. Promises of aid to the Lebanese government have poured in from the Gulf states, Europe, and America, in the hopes that it will help the state take control of Hezbollah. Weapons and military training for the Lebanese army make up a large portion of the US aid package, and European aid includes thousands of soldiers and warships patrolling the coast as part of UNIFIL, the United Nations force in Lebanon.
Hezbollah grew as a state within a state. That is not a solution for the long-term stability of the country. I think in the end what has to occur is that the Lebanese state has to be able to demonstrate that it could provide for the Lebanese people.
Carlos Pascual, who once served as the US State Department's coordinator for reconstruction and stabilization, believes that it is in Israel's interests to use some of its military budget to prop up the Lebanese state's operations in the south.
Every year, Israel gets about $2.3 billion in foreign military financing from the United States. And so if the Israelis were to see that this could be a useful way of transferring part of those resources, it can be something which in the end is directly consistent with what Israel's interests are. It's been possible for the Israelis, the Lebanese armed forces, and UNIFIL to meet and to exchange information on practical security matters. That's a constructive thing.
Fadi Toufi has studied Hezbollah's construction projects over the last 2 decades. His book, God's Narrow Nations, argues that Hezbollah's strength comes from its construction projects. Toufi hopes that Hezbollah's strongholds are not rebuilt as they were. He hopes the state will take control of the reconstruction process and weaken Hezbollah's base.
Hezbollah's military wing was similar to the military wings of all the other parties that tried to control Dahi. In addition, it created institutions that resemble a government and turned Dahi into an autonomous region.
وبالتالي جعل الضاحية مكتفي بذاتها. بظن أحدى بداية فك هذا الاجتماع اللي هو يتغذى حزب الله منه.
One of the ways to begin to change the nature of this community that Hezbollah feeds on is to rebuild the whole area with public gardens, public libraries, and open spaces to prevent the current overcrowding. This new built environment will create a different cultural environment and different political affiliations.
But public gardens and open spaces are unlikely to spring up anytime soon in Lebanon's poorest communities. The government's last reconstruction project after the civil war spent hundreds of millions on a posh downtown shopping area, while the poor in places like the southern Beirut suburb lacked running water. Hezbollah is publicly calling for the Lebanese state to play a larger role in the reconstruction of the south. They see political motivations behind the government's delays.
The government is related with Americans and European policies. They don't want to let our government work in South Lebanon because they consider this kind of work to give more force for the resistance. We make all our effort to have the government take the responsibility to do this job. But unfortunately, because of political problem in Lebanon, our government, they don't take this responsibility very soon. We always do the work because the government doesn't do it.
While some communities hit hard by the war wait for the state to act, in Dahi, Hezbollah has almost finished the cleanup and their engineers are optimistic about the struggle ahead.
أيضاً نعتبر عملية إعادة البناء وإعادة ما تهدم من قبل الحرب الإسرائيلية هو معركة. The reconstruction process is another battle that was imposed on us by the Israeli enemy, and we will win like we won in the field. مثل ما انتصرنا أولاً وأنا بقول لك إعادة. The reconstruction is a coming victory. أيضاً.
Back in Ait al-Shab, as residents move back into the ruins of their homes, many share Hezbollah's view that they are part of a battle over the nation's future, and they are proud of the role they see themselves playing in the resistance.
If it weren't for the resistance, we wouldn't be here. If it weren't for the resistance, we wouldn't be on our land, in our country. Israel says it wants to eliminate the resistance from Lebanon. But honestly, we're all the resistance. The women are the resistance, the girls are the resistance, the boys are the resistance. We are all the resistance. We, all the women, would live in tents if necessary. The important thing is to be back to our land. Yes, the important thing is to be back to our homes. Ait al-Shab, there is nothing more beautiful than Ait al-Shab.